Hi there, I am Nahim Mizan, MD. I am a family medicine trained medical legal consulting physician. This means that I work with patients, I work with hospitals, clinics, doctors, nurses, and what I basically do is provide medical legal advice, which is a super niche field. If you're interested and would love to work with us, then our email is in our profile. This series will basically be going through medical malpractice cases throughout US history that have led to significant societal and healthcare implications. The first video on the topic I'll link up there is a Libby case trial, and this led to significant changes in residency training that have existed to this day. If you wish to support our channel, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, writing a comment. And if you wish to support the channel even more, because these videos take days to create, consider buying us a coffee. So without further ado, thank you again, everyone, and on to the video. Mary Poppins, The Sound of Music, The Princess Diaries, the list goes on. Julie Andrews really was and is a Hollywood icon, a legend, really. And unfortunately, she lost her singing voice. And it's actually the topic of a huge medical malpractice case. So today's episode, we will be diving into the Julie Andrews lost singing voice case. So Dame Julie Andrews is an English actress, singer, and author. She's garnered numerous accolades throughout her career, spanning over 8 decades, including an Academy Award, a BAFTA Award, 2 Emmy Awards, 3 Grammy Awards, and 6 Golden Globe Awards, as well as nominations for 3 Tony Awards. One of the biggest box office draws of the 1960s, Andrews has been honored with the Kennedy Center Honors in 2001, the Screen Actors Guild Life Achievement Award in 2007, and the AFI, or American Film Institute, Life Achievement Award in 2022. She was made a Dame, DBE, by Queen Elizabeth II in the year 2000. A child actress and singer, Andrews appeared in the West End in 1948 and made her Broadway debut in The Boy Friend, 1954, billed as Britain's youngest prima donna. She rose to prominence in Broadway musicals, starring as Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady and Queen Guinevere in Camelot. She also starred in the Rodgers and Hammerstein television musical Cinderella. Andrews made her feature film debut as a title character in Walt Disney's Mary Poppins, which all of us millennials are very, very connected to. Like, I remember watching Mary Poppins almost every other day, either in our own house or a friend's house. You know, we all had the VHS cassettes of Mary Poppins. And she won the Academy Award for Best Actress for Mary Poppins. The following year, she starred in the musical film The Sound of Music, playing Maria Von Trapp, and winning the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress, Motion Picture Comedy, or Musical. And again, The Sound of Music is emblematic of classic original film and cinema. And it is also one of those movies that my family, at the very least, like, we rewatch it every so often. It's just, and it's an amazing classic. It's a story of a, let's say, a controlled family that, you know, where this person brings sunlight into this dark family that lost their mother. And Julie Andrews' character really does instill this sense of wonder and life into the family and really revives them. So why is this so important? So number one, she's an actress, right? She's also a singer. And so her voice is extremely important. And if you've seen our videos before, we go over something in the medical legal sector called basically damages. So damages is sort of an umbrella term that includes life expectancy, any injuries, any therapies that a patient might need, but it also includes what's called economic damages. So economic damages are really the crux of the Julie Andrews lost voice case. And in a celebrity who's known to be a singer, known to be an actress, your voice is your moneymaker, right? Like, a lot of people say, like, oh, you know, like, what's that term? Like, oh, anything but the face. Like, you know, yes, sure. Like, your appearance is very important if you're ever in the limelight, but also for a singer and an actress and an actor, right? It's your voice that also garners you an income, a steady income, and any type of popularity really does come from one's voice. So, an actress or a singer losing their voice is akin to losing any career you may have within that field. And so, these are taken extremely seriously in lawsuits. Okay, so again, speaking of her early life and vocal training, in her memoir, Julie Andrews, My Star Pupil, Styles Allen records, quote, "The range, accuracy, and tone of Julie's voice amazed me. She had possessed the rare gift of absolute pitch." Now, I'm not a singer, but I did, grow up playing the violin, the piano, the drums. My baby sister actually is an amazing singer and guitarist. And so there's a bit of music, knowledge in my head, but absolute pitch is a very rare trait that a person can have, and many times it's something that may be developed, but most people are really just born with this like extremely amazing gift. And so she had absolute pitch. So this wasn't just a classically trained singer who lost her voice. This was really a miraculous human who had absolute pitch who lost her singing voice. So that made the lawsuit even more so, even more attractive, and just so much more tragic, I would say. So basically, she was classically trained, so that also factors into the list of damages that attorneys factor in when they call for a settlement or for an economic damage package, like when looking for either settlement or judgment. So Andrews was forced to quit the Victor/Victoria stage production towards the end of the Broadway run in 1997, when she developed hoarseness in her voice. She subsequently underwent surgery at New York's Mount Sinai Hospital, reportedly to remove non-cancerous nodules from her throat, though she later stated the hoarseness was due to a certain kind of muscular striation that happens on the vocal cords, itself the result of a strain from Victor/Victoria. She added, "I didn't have cancer, I didn't have nodules, I didn't have anything." She emerged from the surgery with permanent damage that destroyed the purity of her singing and made her speaking voice raspy. In 1999, she filed a malpractice suit against the doctors at Mount Sinai Hospital, including Scott Kessler and Jeffrey Libin, who had operated on her throat. Originally, the doctors assured Julie Andrews that she should regain her voice within 6 weeks. But Andrews' stepdaughter, Jennifer Edwards, said in 1999, "It's been 2 years and her singing voice still hasn't returned." The lawsuit was settled in September 2000 for an undisclosed amount. So Andrews admits that she has never recovered from the botched attempt to remove nodules from her vocal cords back in 1997. Her famous 4-octave soprano was then reduced to a fragile alto. She was quoted at the time as saying, "I can sing the hell out of Old Man River." um, Subsequently, which requires a deeper voice, right? Subsequently, from 2000 onwards, Stephen M. Zeitels, director of the Massachusetts General Hospital Center for Laryngeal Surgery and Voice Rehab or Rehabilitation, operated on her 4 times, and while able to improve her speaking voice, was unable to restore her singing. Okay, so there's quite a bit to unpack here. Number one, so what did she actually have? So she had something, we're not sure because, again, all of this is protected by HIPAA. In all the research that my team and I did, we couldn't really find any medical information about Julie Andrews's, lost voice case, which was surprising. Like if you watch her Michael Jackson video and the Libby Zion video, a lot of the information was just, presented to local media outlets by the family or by the families, really. But in this situation, it seems that the family was extremely tight-lipped, which is a smart thing to do, right? Like, don't tell anyone anything, really, about your personal information or about the personal information of your loved ones. So what happened in this situation? So number one, like she developed what were, as far as we know, they were vocal cord nodules. And so sometimes these singers, like they can't reach high notes anymore because the tissue itself grows, to compensate for all the talking and singing that a singer must do. And so it's similar to like muscle hypertrophy when weightlifting. And so, like maybe it was nodules. It wasn't cancer. Absolutely, it was not cancer. But it was either nodules or some sort of thickening of the vocal cords. And so the procedure for that is really just to shave off that excess tissue. Um, so this procedure, of course, like just by my description, it's quite clear that it's a very risky procedure, right? And that it does have a very long recovery period. So that's something expected. So the crux of this situation is something called known complications. And I'll go ahead and link our previous video on botched surgical cases, and that video basically talks about known complications and surgeries. Disclaimer, I am not a surgeon. I'm nowhere near a surgeon, and I do not pretend to be a surgeon in any of my cases. I always ask my surgical colleagues for their opinions on standard of care in surgical cases. However, every single surgery, at least in the United States, the patient and or their POA or their family members have to sign what's called an informed consent form. So an informed consent form, and this is very important for everyone watching. So the informed consent form basically says, hey, look, like we're going to do this thing that you agree to on paper. You agree that we're going to do this thing, this procedure, and the risks of it are that, we could theoretically cut your vocal cords in half, or it might lead to death, or it might lead to, an esophageal perforation or something, loss of voice, loss of whatever, right? Heart attack, stroke. And so these informed consent forms are extremely, important for the hospitals and for the surgeons because it's a CYA form, right? Like it covers your behind. And again, the patient is basically saying, look, like, thank you for telling me the risks and the benefits. And I still agree to undergo this procedure, knowing the risks, but also knowing the benefits. And it's my choice, it's my patient autonomy to go forward with this surgical procedure. Okay. So now, and again, like I feel like, please watch my surgical complications video because I feel like I'm just repeating myself here. But the important thing about the term known complication is that it doesn't give immunity to a surgeon or to any physician or nurse or whatever. Like, even though it's in the informed consent form and even though it is a known complication in the medical legal world, it doesn't mean that the surgeon can just willy-nilly do a procedure, right? Like they have to follow the standard of care for that procedure. If there were 100 surgeons watching that one surgeon, then if the majority said, look, like, he or she performed the surgery adequately, then that would meet standard of care. And again, how is this figured out? They basically look at the operation notes. So, and again, like this is why I tell all my surgery clients, even if there was a complication, always document everything honestly. The reason why is because if you document things, then you have it right there, right? Like it's like, okay, yeah, like while we did this, like we made a small tear, however, we quickly fixed it. You know, done. Like that's great. Mea culpa. We made a mistake. Everything's great. But if you don't, if you say no complications, even though there was one that you noticed, and then later on there's a lawsuit or there's an audit where a different surgeon, who's basically trying to find any holes in your case, they're going to say that, like, look, like, even though they said no complications based on the amount of material, like the amount of tissue removed, based on the scalpel used, really, like these are cases that I've actually worked on. Like, like the expert on the other side say like, oh, well, based on this size 3 scalpel, this is a lie that they only removed 1 centimeter of tissue because it can remove up to 5 centimeters of tissue. So these are the things that surgeons argue, either plaintiff side or defendant side. So what ultimately happened at the end? So, we mentioned how the case was settled. So there's a difference between settlement and judgment. And again, like our previous videos talk a little bit about it, but I'll just say it here. So basically what happened with Julie Andrews is that she did file a medical malpractice lawsuit against the doctors involved, alleging that the operation was botched, like it was done incorrectly or inadequately, leaving her with hoarseness of her voice, permanent vocal damage, and other complications. The lawsuit was eventually settled for an undisclosed amount in the year 2000. So Again, this was not, because it didn't go to trial, it didn't go to judgment. It wasn't public knowledge. So, we tried looking, we couldn't find the undisclosed amount. It will never be public knowledge unless someone says it. But basically, what this means is that the hospital, instead of saying, look, like, we're going to hire a team of lawyers, we're going to fight you, they said, look, like, we're just going to give you this amount of money, and, just take it, and we don't have to do a lengthy legal battle. The reason why and again, this is something that shocks a lot of like people that are not familiar with this space. I would, like, based on my estimates, and again, these are not real numbers, but I would say more than 90% of these malpractice, allegations end up in settlements. They either get thrown out or they end up as a settlement. Like, especially with the nursing homes, most hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, they don't want to be in the limelight, right? Because it's bad PR. Like, it's going to ruin a lot of things. It's going to ruin a lot of reputations of, good doctors, good nurses, just because one person messed up. And also, it's going to ruin the credibility of that facility or that institution. So most of these situations end up as just a, behind closed doors settlement that never becomes public. But usually both parties signed a non-disclosure agreement where, they say, look, like, even if, TMZ or some news website is like calling you, you can never disclose how much we gave you. Okay. And the final part of this puzzle, which again, we don't have information about, but in these types of situations, usually the attorney that fights for the patient hires what's known as a life care planner. So a life care planner is a person who does the calculations of, oh, okay, if Julie Andrews, if the surgery was done appropriately and she didn't lose her voice, how much money would she be potentially making up until the day of her death? So that's how these settlement numbers are created. So, like when you hear these like insane numbers, right? Like it's like $100 million like awarded to this person who, like to this family who lost their daughter, God forbid, or something. How do they come up with that? So that's by using a life care planner who puts in the age of the patient, how much money they were making on average, and the potential of that patient up until an average age of death. And again, I'm not a life care planner, so I'm not going to opine on that. But it is a science, so it's not just some random large number. And again, and part of that amount is also punitive. So the word punitive in law basically means as punishment. So it's like, like, because whenever these things happen, like, you do have to sort of like, slap the defendant on the wrist and say, look, like, we're going to use you as an example so that in the future, other ENTs or laryngeal surgeons, like, they know that, like, look, like, if you mess up, like, you could lose your license, your hospital will be sued for this much money. We'll have to eventually, eat up all of your malpractice insurance and give like 100K or a million or whatever. But yeah, so this was a very tragic case, and it hit close to home yet again because we love The Sound of Music, we love Mary Poppins, we love Julie Andrews. My sisters love the Princess Diaries series, so like all these movies would be playing in our household, like as growing up as a kid. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was a very straightforward one. But please watch our video on surgical complications because it'll explain a lot more on what are, like, what is known, what are known complications, what does an informed consent form actually protect you, the patient, from, and what does it protect the provider from. But again, like, thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and leave any comments below. If there are any other famous medical malpractice cases that you'd like our team to take a look at and investigate, leave a comment below. And thank you again for everyone leaving your comments and, for all the support for the channel. We really, really do appreciate it. All right, guys, well, take care, and until next time.